Mozilla's mission calls us to engage in the world, to understand the online world, to improve it, and to join with others. The exact style with which we join with others may change over time, even as the mission remains constant. This is our first style of engaging with the world. You'll notice it's very open source focused, it's very developer focused, and it is an invitation to participate in building a better internet. In its day, this was radical. Open source was not mainstream. There was no open data, open government, open science. There was no collaborative economy. There was no sharing economy. There was very little user-generated content. And open source was one of the triggers that led to these various movements. So in its time, it was a radical invitation to openness and a radical invitation to participation. This engagement model served us astonishingly well. This model built the communities that built Firefox. This model allowed us to expand the set of people who could participate in creation dramatically. Our volunteer quality assurance teams came out of this era. Our volunteer localization teams came out of this era. Our regional and local communities that evangelized for a better internet and for Mozilla and our products came from this model. And not too long after this day, the development of Firefox began in earnest. And we began thinking about Firefox slightly differently. Especially the development team was very focused that Firefox would be consumer friendly. And the design cases and use cases were all about an individual consumer and what would her experience be online. And so we evolved. And this was our second engagement model with the world. It was quite different. You'll notice it's much more consumer focused. It was our first step in putting the consumer and individual person at the heart of what we do. We took away, I should go back and say the literal minded of you will say, well, Mitchell, your first image was a web page, and now you've got browser content. But I assure you, if you go back and look at mozilla.org for the date of Firefox 1.0 release, you will find a similar shift in focus to consumer friendly. We took away all of the information and links about us, who we are, why we build, and the tools that allow us to do those things. And instead, we put a connection to the internet. In those days, search was new, it was incredibly exciting, and it was the connection. And so we took the experience that consumers wanted and that would improve their lives, and we put that at the center of our presentation to the world. Now that was a dramatic change. It was a difficult change. It took us months, and we fought. We struggled. You know, the small team of 15 or 20 people in Mountain View and the larger team remotely around the world to make this change. Because it is not a classic change for an open source organization to shift to consumer focus. The second thing that we did is behind that search box. We had had a search box in the early Firefox versions and the product before that, but we had never been paid for it. And so this puts a business relationship with revenue as the first thing people saw when they opened Firefox. Now that was a dramatic change, and also very difficult, with months of consideration and work and planning. And the comment I remember the most from a news article was loss of innocence. And I thought, Well, yes, and. Because we were convinced that something as complex and broad as a browser or access to the internet needed full-time attention. Needed a volunteer community as well, but at the core, we could not do this on a part-time, all-volunteer basis. And so we had been relying on charitable contributions and companies, which somehow felt innocent out in the world. But it is not innocent. And relying on charitable contributions and fundraising for the size and scope and scale that we needed is not at all innocent. And one of the things that the current foundation fundraising team remains quite excellent at is fundraising without allowing any of the donors or grant makers to call the shots. That's a very rare and difficult thing. And so I felt, yes, loss of innocence, in that now there is actual money in the system. And this is the most direct, most transparent, and most scalable way to sustain the organization. And it ties our sustainability to the use of our product and its value to our users. So we made it through that transition. And that, of course, together, the focus on consumers and the ability to sustain ourselves made possible the size and scope and scale of what we have accomplished since then. And in that era, it was before the surveillance economy. Google was new. Search was new. The ad system was rudimentary. And so at the time, it felt exceedingly aligned. Search was an exciting piece, and people loved it. Now, that model has sustained us through a long and very rich period. Long development on Firefox, development on new products, from Focus to Firefox Lite to Firefox Monitor to all of the other work that you are engaged in. And it has given us a name globally of trust and allowed us to engage in a range of programs, from new product development to the advocacy work that the foundation is doing. So that has been very successful. And it is time to evolve again. Because these products are a bit one-dimensional. Mozilla creates a product. Let's say I use that product. It is a tool for me. A tool where I might protect myself, I might personalize my experience. You know, Mozilla and Firefox do a few things on the back end, particularly related to security and malware problems, but much of the power of the tool is for me to use. And that's an important foundation that we should keep, but it is no longer enough. It is time to take the next step at putting an individual consumer at the center of everything we do. That's because it is a complicated world out there. If you get online, even with a single phone, you have a browser, maybe two, maybe three. You have a world of apps, and each one of them is doing something. And all of them are in a sea of data. And my ability as a single human being to protect myself or customize my own experience or have impact and control over what happens to me is very limited. And even if we build a portfolio of 10 or 20 great products, and they're all separate and they all rely on me to somehow use those products to build the experience I'm looking for, that is asking too much of consumers. And so this era of putting people in the center requires more. It requires a relationship. And in the past, we've been very proud of the degree of anonymity we have with our users. That is an important foundation because anonymity is important in life. But today, we need to add to that to actually have a relationship, a known relationship between Firefox and the person using it. And that relationship should cover multiple products, multiple experiences, and it must address the data problem. We live in a world of data. It is valuable. It is not going away. The problem is how it is handled. And traditionally at Mozilla, we like to take a hands-off approach and say, we're not going to do anything with data because we don't want to make a mistake. It is time for that to change. Because who else in the world is going to help us? Who is going to help me or you or the people you care about or the people we don't know elsewhere in the world navigate the sea of data? Who else will be a responsible steward of data? Who else can build and influence an ecosystem that acknowledges the value of data and applies it for your benefit or my benefit, but not the benefit of a few shareholders? Not many organizations in the world can do that. And we are here and we have the opportunity to do that. And so that is the next evolution in front of us. Now, this evolution is also not easy. We will experience a broad range of emotions, from fear to excitement, to deep anger and frustration when we make mistakes, to confidence that we can do something new and we can evolve again and stay true to the core of Mozilla. We evolved Firefox to be consumer-focused. We are still open source and looking out for users. We can evolve our relationship with people so that we engage sometimes anonymously, sometimes pseudonymously, and sometimes in an identity-based system. We will go onward. And as we do this, there are a few themes that we know we need to address. The first one, you are the product. This is unacceptable. This is an area that is directly in front of us, that is closely tied to the products that we build, and where we should become the advocate of individuals, both anonymously, as we do today, and in a much closer way with an actual relationship. We know how to block trackers. We know how to be defensive. I want us to play offense. I want Mozilla products to help me go out in the world and make sure I am not the product and that my data is used in a way that makes sense to me. A second theme is content. And in part, I mean Pocket and content, but I mean it also more broadly. Like, we render the web. The web is content. And today, it is hard to know what is real, what is lies, and what is actually going on with content out there. We have types of expertise that need to be in this dialogue and that need to be building products, to be experimenting with how do we fix this. And a third great theme is the addiction economy. Because the product piece and the monetization piece get wrapped up in encouraging us to take actions that are profitable. And as a human being, very few of us alone are strong enough and aware enough and knowledgeable enough to understand the power of the AIs today aimed at us, pushing and pumping addictive behavior. The human psyche is prone to this. And so it will take technologists building and experimenting with different forms of interaction to build new ways of engaging with data and information. And as we address these things, people today are asking, the internet is broken. What can I do? One part of that answer should be, get yourself a relationship with Mozilla. Make it as deep as you want. Sign up, don't sign up. But you should have a relationship with Mozilla. That's where the tools are. That's where the products are that are trying to help you. That's where you can find better experiences. And that's where you can help improve the internet as you improve your own experience. And if we do that, then we help everyone demand better of the internet. And if we grow the set of people who can demand better of the internet and join together to experience better things as we build them, then this era of Mozilla and this style of engagement will be as rich and powerful and exciting and transformative as anything we can imagine. That is our challenge and our opportunity. Thank you.